What is up, responsible day traders? Today is Sunday. It is Sunday, February 12th, 2022. I am Lindsay Duff, and this is Responsible Day Trading. All right, so I got a little video in for y'all last week. It had been a while. I decided to hit the record button and just deal with the consequences of the time in order to get that out to y'all. So I'm going to do that a little more often. I got really caught up on some things this weekend, although there are tons of projects in the works. So, I'm just going to do what I can when I can. And that's all there is to it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the market. Man. Okay, so it moved all the way up and I was like, man, this is the time. We might see this push through, but we did have the opportunity for the market to pull back, which it has done. Today it opened with this giant bar that's pulling back. I was really trying to wait for the 10946 to finish developing its first bar before I started, but that wasn't going to happen. So we just went ahead and got things kicked off. Now, don't forget that we do have the seminar coming up for responsible day trading. If you'd like to be a part of that, if you have never traded before, or if you've never been in our course before and you would like to learn, we have something set aside for that. And if you have been through the course, make sure you're reaching out to us. Remember, VIP students, you already have a free ticket. Anybody else who wants to upgrade or anything like that, you'll get a ticket with that as well. So hit us up, info@responsibledaytrading.com, and we'll be happy to give you any information that you need over that. So let's go ahead, get this started, get this kicked off, and let's check out what the news is doing, and then we're going to check out the market. All right, so the first thing we like to do is see what news has for the week for us. We're going to go over here to responsibledaytrading.com, then we're going to go to news, and then we're going to go to market news. So we can see here, gosh, pretty much everything is pre-market. We have one thing that happens an hour after the market opens, which is crude oil inventories on Wednesday. But otherwise, we got a little bit on Valentine's Day pre-market. So an hour before the market opens, an hour before the market opens here, and an hour before the market opens here. So most things are going to happen pre-market. So if you don't trade pre-market, then you don't really have much to worry about for all of that. All right, let's go ahead and see what the market's doing. All right, let's start off with this daily chart right here. And we want to be looking at this particular chart. And what we see, like I said, the market had moved up. We had seen this little bit of a pullback here, and we anticipated a pullback to happen towards the EMAs. Now, because this price action has been pulling back, this EMA has not gone full send on the crossover. It's really just right there where it's pinching. Now, if this comes up just a little bit more right in here and it pulls back into it, we'll still be higher than this last pullback. But the last major pivot was really right about back here, and we may be making a run for it. If I look at what the MACDs are doing, currently they have pulled inside of the Bollinger Bands, but they haven't pulled inside with strength. This is typically what we see with a strong move to cross that opposite Bollinger Band. We did have a little bit of weakness happen here when it pulled across, and then it picked up the pace and went down. So we may see that happen again, but right now we aren't quite to that bottom Bollinger Band. We have what looks like trying to be a reversal bar from last week, our Friday bar that came all the way down here. If it pushes up, we'll see it behave as a reversal bar. If this price bar comes down and reaches back below this, that's no longer a reversal bar. It may become something like part of a pattern of the reversal bar, where you've got the first bar that reaches up here, the next bar also giving us a long flag and closing back up. But we're going to have to watch it and see. Right now, I'm a little hopeful for it pushing back up, simply because these BBs haven't even separated from one another as they pulled inside of the Bollinger Bands, and we're inside of that bottom Bollinger Band. We're above it still. So will it? Only time will tell. I know I say that a lot, but it's the truth. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at what the 28,657 has for us, and that's that next Fibonacci number. It's that next Fibonacci number down that I like to look at. And so the 28,657 has a little bit of a different story to tell than what we saw on the daily chart. The EMAs are opened up with strength to the downside. We tried once, we tried twice. Is this our third time trying to have this area of the EMA hold and push to the downside? This big bar so far says that it's trying to. What I'm looking at really is how is this BB reacting? It did have a little bit of distance from the Bollinger Bands, and we know that we look for a snapback there, or for it to snap back inside when that happens. And so, I mean, it's trying to drop hard. It hasn't gotten back inside of the Bollinger Bands just yet. This was a giant bar that's really, really worked to pull down. You know, one of the funny things about this big bar opening up is it gave us a new little high. And, you know, if we're looking at this area as the low, it's definitely giving us a new low. If it gets back below here, it's going to be a little difficult to see the longevity of the long trades at that moment. So right now, with the bar pushing hard to the downside and closing the close currently at the bottom, I would be inclined to say that it's pushing in that direction. Now, we still have about 20,000 ticks left of this 28,657. So that means in that 20,000 ticks, we could see this move all the way up to the top and close at the top. I mean, it's a possibility, but it's not what's happening right now. Now, I was really, really trying to wait for this bar to close because what I wanted to see is where this BB was going to land. Is this BB going to land right here at that bottom Bollinger Band and work off of that to push up? Or is it going to push through there and tell us to start looking for the moves back towards the downside? If we're looking at our 10,946, our 1597, our 233, the direction has surely worked to shift to the downside on these two, and it never went back to the upside on the 10,946. We tried to break above the EMA right in here. We got back above it, but we couldn't pull away from it. Now we made an attempt to pull away from the EMA here, but you can see we really just came back and tagged it and didn't really pull away from it. So the pull away happened here, but immediately moved and pushed to the downside. So it is pushing pretty hard down now, and that's a lot of distance in that gap of the BB, but this is that first bar of the day. And we know that that first little movement of the day can sometimes be deceiving. Now, if we're looking at the 1597, those BBs are strong and outside of the Bollinger Bands, and they've been really working to push hard down. It does have a sense of a slowdown here as we are reaching an area that could possibly give us a bounce in the MACDs that we see happening right in here. We also just have a bit of a slowdown here. We still have this bottom Bollinger Band. We had a nice pop up in the MACDs here, but I don't believe we're done going to the downside right now. Something that we may see happen is it pull back into this area as it crosses over, because what we'll see is this move down more and cross over and lean down, and this will go with it and give us areas that we can pull back and bounce up to, which we can see would be very in tune with the EMAs staying open to the downside on the 233. So right now it's slowed down just a little bit. Remember, that first big move in the morning can be a little, I don't want to call it deceiving. And that first big move of the open after it's been closed for a few days. I mean, because yes, the MACDs did show you strength the whole way down. And if you took a short here, you would be absolutely right. And when it pulled back into here, it would be a little bit more difficult to take the short for a couple of different reasons. Number one, you're not really at a nice solid area that could create a bounce. Yes, we do have an area of resistance here that has been support and resistance, but you can see we've gone above and below it pretty easily a few times and actually pulled down just a little bit lower, more about where we're at right now. Now the BBs here, as we pulled back a little bit, stayed blue and to the outside. That tells us to look for a deeper pullback. So If you were one of those people that took a short right in here, you'd be watching these BBs saying, sheesh, I don't know if this is really going to continue down from right here. We've even got this BB starting to pull together a little bit here. Now, do I think it's still got the oomph behind it to go down? Absolutely. But this is one of the joys of using that smaller tick chart is it allows us to see if we have the opportunity for it to pull back deeper. Now, it could absolutely drop like a rock and fall from here as it's held up and created a little bit of a ceiling. But we know that when we create that distance to the EMAs, those EMAs act like a magnet and we wait for it to snap back into there. Some of the reasons we wait for it to snap back is it gives us a better area to continue with the move to the downside. And it also gives us a much better area for us to have our risk. So I would consider this kind of trading out in the middle if we put our risk right above here and went ahead and entered, because we're looking to pull back a little bit further to areas. Remember, right in here, possibly even right in here, but even if it does pull back up in here, and it's not one giant bar like we saw here, like I said, we're going to see these EMAs pull down just a little bit more to give us a better area to take the trade. Those moving averages are going to come down a little bit more. I want to wait just a few minutes. I really want to see what this 10946 BB is going to do with the next BB as it's being created. So I may just cut this out, but I'm just going to sit here and watch until this bar finishes counting down. This may keep pushing down from here as this BB had just pulled in a little bit and it's starting to separate again. Still though, for safety's sake, it's not something that I would have taken. Something I didn't pay attention to as that BB is separating and pulling back and separating and pulling back is how many ticks we have left. We still had well over half the bar. And so making that assumption with that much time left, without a strong push past the Bollinger Band here to tell us, yes, we have the opportunity for more down, it's still a watch and wait for me at that point. All right, that 10946 is pulled down right to that bottom Bollinger Band. And there is a lot of oomph behind that, a lot of strength behind it. So it may not hold at this point, but I'm still seeing the slowdown happening here on the 233. Even though it did push down further, look what's happening with the MACDs. They are really struggling to get down there. So this is a point typically where I would possibly see a pullback, but the MACDs are still so strong here. They have got just a lot of force behind them on the 10946. All right, as this bar is wrapping up, just a couple of thoughts that I'm having to myself. If this does stay strong down and it gets back below this spot right in here, guys, we should see some more movement to the downside because we want to look at that. That is where we have this last major low that happened here. And if we look at the daily chart, we can see what looks like a reversal bar there, but it's a very small, weak reversal bar. I mean, I love the tiny reversal bars, but it's very weak. It is inside of the Bollinger Bands here still. So are we gonna see it come back and reach this area back here? It is definitely look like it's attempting to do it, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Is this BB gonna curl around and come back up? Or are we just gonna continue with this strength to the downside? So if we're looking at this, of course, our biggest tick chart, like our daily chart, that is still in an upward trend. Even though it's really struggling, we do still have an upward trend attempting to make the moves back to the upside. So the overall on the daily chart is up, but it may be a little difficult to maintain. because when we look at the 28,657, it's already moved down to the downside. It has made this little shift back up, but look at the overall. With these EMAs strong down, we barely made a break into it here. So we may see this really work to continue down. When we're looking at the 10,946, it really attempted to make the move back to the upside here. It hasn't done that yet. We haven't necessarily shifted this momentum completely back in a real strong focus to the downside, as we haven't gotten below any of these areas that held. So we're going to want to see that happen. Now, if we're looking at the way the MACDs look right now, it says that we should. The 1597, the 233 have all shifted the immediate to the downside. So the overall is down and the immediate is down. So we're going to have to really see some hard work for this to come back up and get back above here. As we know that the market can do the work, but we don't want to try and be the ones doing it ourselves. We want to watch it, see what it's telling us, see if the MACD slowed down and have any kind of chance of getting back above the Bollinger Bands, back above the EMAs, and making these moves back to the upside. Currently, like I said, first area we want to get back below, right in here. Next area is here. Third area is here, and we may see that drop from there. So we're just going to have to watch and see what the market gives us. All right, my friends, that is going to wrap it up. It definitely looks like it is trying to continue with that move to the downside. We have some areas of support that are going to be pretty hard to break through, but the market's going to do what it wants to do. And if it feels like breaking through it, then so be it, it will. All we have to do is just pay attention, make sure that we have our risk in the proper place, and don't feel like we have to be in every move. If you have a loser, it's okay. All you have to do is regroup, refocus, and get back in the game. Now, if you've got something like 3 or 4 losers in a row, that may be a time for you to step back and say, what am I doing? What has my thought process on taking the wrong trades? Am I trying to force things? Am I thinking about an argument I had with my spouse, kids, dog this morning, whatever it may be? So you have to have a strong focus on those things as well, because if you don't, you'll allow yourself just to give away money because you're frustrated. And then that makes you even more frustrated. We know that's no fun. All right. Don't forget, if you want to be a part of the seminar, please reach out to us, info@responsibledaytrading.com, and we'll get you all the information you'd like. And that's going to be it. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. And as always, you know that I look forward to catching you on the profitable side.